Hello guys, today we'll be learning how to make this pinafore dress. This is a very easy to follow tutorial. I'll also be showing you guys how to eliminate zipper bulge from a pinafore dress. If this seems like something you're interested in, keep on watching and let's get started. To create this dress, I used 2 yards of fabric and my fabric length is by 60. If yours is by 45, you might be needing 2.5 yards. We are going to cut out the lower part of this dress first, and it starts from the underbust, so make sure to take note of that. I've gone ahead to place my back piece on fold here, and you can see that I've ruled out my zipper allowance. I use a zipper allowance of 1.25 inch. Also make sure that what you have here is enough to contain your measurements. Also, I have my front piece here on fold. I'm going to go ahead and place it on the zipper allowance line because we'll be cutting out the front and the back piece together. From the top of your fabric, come down by about 1 inch and rule a starting line like I've already done here. And in this case, this starting line is going to be where the underbust measurement is going to start from. So my shoulder to underbust is 14 inches. Make sure that you place your underbust measurement on that line there, just exactly as I did. The next measurement you're going to mark is your shoulder to waist measurement. For me, it is 17 inches. Connect this with a straight line. From the waistline, you're going to mark down your waist to your hip measurement. Mine is 8.5 inches. Then you mark out your waist to your knee line. Mine is 24 inches. The last measurement there is going to be the full length of your dress, which is going to be from the shoulder to where you want your dress to stop. For me, it is about 54 inches, as you can see here. Now that you have all your lines in place, you'll be marking your round body measurement on each of these lines. Starting with this one here, you will mark quarter of your underbust measurement. Mine is 8 inches. Add 1 inch stitching allowance to that. On the waistline, mark quarter of your waist measurement. Mine is 7.5 inch, and I'll add 1 inch stitching allowance to that. On the hip line, also mark quarter of your hip measurement and add 1 inch stitching allowance to that. For the measurement you mark on your knee line, take the full measurement of what you have on your hip line. For me, it is 12 inches. Remove 1.5 inch from that, and whatever you get, you mark it on the hip line. After taking out 1.5 inch, I have 10.5 inch, so that is what I'm going to mark on my knee line. Then you'll be taking out ½ inch from what you marked on your knee line, and you'll be marking that on the length. So I'll mark 10 inches on the length. Now let's go ahead and connect all these points together to get the shape of our dress. Before you go ahead and cut this out, we'll be doing a zipper shape knit to reduce zipper bulge, especially on pinafore dresses that start from the underbust. I'll show you how to easily do this. Now on the waistline here, make sure you extend the line into the back piece like this. From this point here, you're going to go inward by 0.5 inch, and you connect from this point here into the waistline like this, and from this point on the waistline back into the hip line. Can you see that shaping there? This is what will help to eliminate the zipper bulge and give you a very nice fitting. Now for the zipper allowance on this waistline here, this here is our new point. So from this point, you're going to mark your zipper allowance. I'm using 1.25 inch. From this point also, you connect it back into the waistline like this and back into the hip line. And guys, this is how easy it is to eliminate zipper bulge at the back of pinafore dresses that start from the underbust. I hope this is helpful. Now go ahead and cut this out just like you see me doing. Make sure you watch how I'm doing this to know exactly how to go about yours. After cutting this out, you're going to proceed to cut out a facing for both the front and the back piece of your dress. So please watch how I'm doing this to know exactly how to go about yours. We are done cutting the lower part of this dress. Keep this aside and let's cut out the upper part of this dress. For the upper part, we are going to cut out the back part first, then proceed to cut out the front part. I already have my fabric here and I have two pieces which I pinned together. The first thing you need to do is to make sure to mark your zipper allowance. Also come down by about ½ inch from the top of your fabric and rule a starting line. The first thing we are going to do here is to draft out a basic back bodice, and from there we are going to get our pinafore design. Also make sure that what you have here is going to contain your shoulder to your underbust measurement plus ½ inch stitching allowance, as you can see mine here. From here, mark 3 inches as your neck width. Also on this shoulder line, mark half of your shoulder measurement. From this point, come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope. Now connect what you have there into your neck width. From the shoulder slope, you're going to mark down your chest line measurement. I'll be leaving the formula on the screen so you can calculate yours. So what I have is 7.8. Also on this chest line, mark half of your shoulder measurement and connect a straight line to the shoulder slope. The next line you're going to mark is going to be your shoulder to your underbust. So mine is 14 inches. I'll add ½ inch to that and mark it there. Also connect this with a straight line. On your chest line, mark quarter of your bust measurement. Here you don't need to add any stitching allowance because this is a pinafore, okay? Divide what you have from your shoulder slope to your chest line by 2. Mark the midpoint. Come in from that point by ½ inch. Now go ahead and connect all those points together to get your armhole curve. On the underbust line, mark quarter of your underbust measurement and connect this back into the chest line. For the neckline, you have to determine how deep you want your neckline at the back to be. For me, I'll be using 10.5 inch. Then coming to the shoulder slope here, I'm going to mark 3 inches. Connect these 2 points together with a curve to give you the shape of your neckline. Make sure you extend this into the zipper allowance like this. Now to get the pinafore design, we don't need the armhole here because we are not inserting sleeves to this pinafore. Okay, so what you are going to do here is from this shoulder slope here, go in by 1 inch. Now from this 1 inch, I'm just going to measure what I have there to the neckline, and you can see I have 2 inches there, but I want it to be 2.5, so I'm going to increase this by ½ inch and I'll connect this back into the neckline like this. On this chest line here, I'm just going to connect a straight line back to what I marked there on the shoulder slope, just like you see me doing. Just do exactly as I'm doing here. For those of you that like to ask for measurements, the measurement you can use here is 1 inch because on the shoulder slope we went in by 1 inch, right? So measuring what I have here from this line is also 1 inch, so you can use 1 inch. Also on the underbust, I'll go in by 1 inch and connect it to what I have on the chest line. So this is what we are going to have. Now proceed to cut this out just like you see me doing here. Make sure that you add ½ inch to this neckline while cutting it out. Also add ½ inch to the shoulder slope, but don't add any allowance to this side here. Now this is what the back looks like. Let's proceed to cut out the front. For the front, I have this piece of fabric here and I already ruled my starting line at the top of my fabric. Also mark down your shoulder to your underbust measurement plus ½ inch stitching allowance. What we are going to do first is to go in from this point by 1.5 inch up here and down here and connect this with a straight line. We are going to measure what we have on the shoulder. Measure what you have on the shoulder of the back piece, 2.5. You are going to mark the same 2.5 here so that the front and the back shoulder is the same. I'll also mark 2.5 inch down here and connect it with a straight line. Now the reason why we came in by 1.5 inch first is because from here I want to create a curve to give it this curved look from the front. So you can see how I'm doing that. From this point I'll just create a curve downward. Now go ahead and cut this out, making sure you add ½ inch stitching allowance to this front here. Also ½ inch to the shoulder. And don't add anything to this side here. Also make sure to cut a lining piece for each of the front and the back piece just like I've done here. The next thing you're going to do, also to reduce zipper bulge at the back of your pinafore dress, what you're going to do is to take out 0.25 inch at this point here. So go in by 0.25 inch at the zipper allowance down here and connect it back upward. Go ahead and trim off this excess. I'll also be trimming it off on this other back piece. The next thing you do now is to join these pieces together. I'm just going to keep the lining aside. I use my main fabric also as my lining. And what you'll be doing here is you place the front and the back right sides facing each other and stitch it down at the shoulders. Make sure to do the same thing on your lining. For the bottom part of the dress, you'll be stitching down the back together. So make sure to take out your facing. Go ahead and label this so you know which side is the zipper. What I'll be doing here is to determine where I want my zipper to start, which is around this point, and then I'll stitch it down from this point all the way to the point I want my slit to start. So I want my slit to start somewhere around here. I'm going to stitch this down from this point and I'm going to stop here. After stitching this down, this is what you should have. We've joined our back piece together, and also make sure that you iron your seams open. Very important, like I've done here. Coming to the upper piece, after joining it at the shoulders, this is what you should have, and like I said, make sure you do the same thing on your lining. The next thing we are going to do here is to create the gathers or the ruffles at the shoulder. So to do this, I have this piece of fabric here which I'll be using. I have two pieces for each side of my shoulder. This is about 3.5 inches long, as you can see here, and for how wide it is, I use the entire length of my fabric, which is about 65 inches. The first thing you're going to do here is to hem one side on both of the pieces, and then the next thing you do is to attach it to this. So to attach it to this, there are two ways to go about this. It's either you make a loose stitch, okay, at the other end of your piece and gather it to what you have here and attach it together, or you create a pleat directly on it. So I'm choosing to create a pleat directly on it. So now I'm going to go to my machine, hem one end, and then create pleats on this. After creating the pleats, you can see how beautiful this looks. If you gather or create pleats, it's going to still come out beautifully. I chose to create pleats because I wanted it to give this bold design. You'll be finishing this upper piece, and to do that, you're going to bring in your lining this way and place it right side to this one. I'll be pinning down the areas where you'll be stitching down. We will make a stitch from this point using half-inch stitching allowance all the way to this point here. And when you are done stitching that down, you are going to push in your pleats or your gathers, making sure that they are not going to be in the way of your stitch on this side. Go ahead and pin it down. And you also stitch down this side using half-inch stitching allowance all the way to the end. After stitching this down, you can see that I've gone ahead to turn out the other side. All you have to do here is to turn this out to the right side and give it a good press. Now, I forgot to mention, make sure that you make a notch around your stitch and trim off the excess. I didn't do this here, but I had to turn this back to trim off the excess before ironing it out so it lays flat. So make sure you do this, okay? After giving this a good press, you can see how beautiful this looks. Now the upper part is ready. All we need to do is to join it to the lower part of our dress. To attach this to the lower part of your dress, starting with the front piece, take out your facing, keep it aside. Make sure to notch the midpoint of this lower part. What you'll be doing here is to mark out your nipple to nipple measurement on both sides from the notched point. So mine is 4 inches. I'm going to mark it on both sides from the midpoint. Then bring in the upper part, place it right sides from this point you marked and pin it down. Do the same thing to the other side. You stitch this down using half-inch stitching allowance. To join the back piece, you place the upper part on the right side of the down part like this, but you'll be placing it from the zipper allowance just like I'm doing here. Then pin it down. Go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. You stitch this down using half-inch stitching allowance. So after doing that, this is what you should have. You would also notice here that I've gone ahead to tack my tassels on the front part of this dress. Make sure you do this before you close up the sides. You would notice that this place here is still open, so we are going to close it up. Just turn this over to the wrong side like this, and what we'll be doing here is to finish up this part. Bring in your facing and make sure that you notch the midpoint of your facing. Also notch the midpoint here. Make sure to place the midpoints together like this. Go ahead and pin it down just like I'm doing here. You'll be stitching this down using half-inch stitching allowance. We'll be doing the same thing to the back. Place your facing to it, pin it down and stitch it down using half-inch stitching allowance. After doing that, this is what you should have. That way you have, secured that area there. The next thing you're going to do now is to go ahead and insert your zipper. Okay, and after inserting your zipper, you'll be closing the sides of this dress. So to close the sides, make sure you arrange them just like I'm doing here. And then starting from the underbust, divide your underbust measurements by 2, and whatever excess you have, you're going to be marking it as your allowance. For me, I have an excess of 2 inches, so I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides. Coming to the waist, also divide your waist measurements by 2. I have an excess of 2 inches, so I'm also going to mark 1 inch on both sides. You'll be doing the same thing to your hip line. Mark out the excess as your stitching allowance. Make sure you connect all this together as I'm doing here. Then you go to your machine and stitch this down. After doing that, make sure that you also hem the end of your dress neatly and give this a good press. Okay, and that is all for this tutorial. I hope this tutorial was really helpful. I'll see you guys in my next one.